All right, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for coming today to Project 3810 for Global Entrepreneurship Week and our Munch and Learn. When we're not doing this Global Entrepreneurship Week, we do these twice a month, an AM edition and a lunch edition. So we try to keep it conversational on our normal, not this formal recording and everything. But today, our topic is product development. I'm Vicki Langford, and I'm actually the founder of 3810. And my background is been in manufacturing for 30-something years. And we manufacture car audio products in the mobile electronic space, consumer electronic space called DD Audio. So that building's right next door. So this is kind of an extension of that for us, and getting back in the community and being active in the startup world has been really fun and educational. We've been here 5 years now. We actually started in California, and we went through an incubator program out there. And then we've always tried to engage and use the resources that are around our states. So it's kind of a natural extension to get back into it again. So, all right, product development. Okay, who here has a business that has products? Anybody? All right, cool. A service is also technically a product. So let's, as we're talking about this, and I'm using product all the time, just realize that as a service, you still have to figure out your costing model, you still have to figure out your value options and stuff. So it's the same in my mind. All right, I wanted to start with the definition of what I feel is a good definition of businesses. We have to create or provide something of value that other people actually need or want at a price that they're willing to pay in a way that satisfies them and meets their expectations and provides revenue so that we can stay in business. So based on that definition, I think we're going to break it down. So create or provide something of value. That is product development. How to figure out what it is that we're creating, and is it providing value? Is it something that people need? So this is pretty simple, but it's not. All right. So then we get, to the ultimate why question. Is it something that people want or need? And that's where we have to really get into what problem are we solving with this product that we're offering. Sometimes we have great ideas, but we haven't tested the market to see if people actually want it or need it. Is it really solving the problem that actual customers have? So we're going to talk a little bit more about this, just given the high level. At a price they're willing to pay, which I feel like in product development, this sometimes can get away. Is it possible? I want to create fusion. Should be so easy. No, it's not possible. I can't do it at a price that I can afford. Nobody's going to give me money to do it. So pie in the sky, you have to break it down and get it into tangible chunks. And I'm not a scientist, too, so it's like even less possible. Is it in a way that satisfies the purchaser's needs and expectations? So is it duplicatable? Is it scalable? We can't just have one customer. So we have to think of the whole customer base that we want to reach. And then can we do it efficiently? Is it going to can we duplicate it and replicate it enough to where we're actually making money so we can run our business and grow or provide benefits or have a life and have roof over our head? So can we do it efficiently? So in my mind, product development needs to answer each one of these things as a whole. Any questions so far? All right, so this has been around for a while, but I love this analogy. This is actually the guy, his name is Henrik Kinberg, probably saying it wrong. He was involved in the Spotify release and creating the code and doing Spotify stuff. He's very much into agile project management, which is basically what he's talking about here. So a lot of times people take product development and they think, okay, I've just got to get to the finished product. This is the car metaphor. So I'm going to start with some foundational things, and then I'm going to put stuff, and then I'm going to get to a finished product. But that doesn't answer the questions properly. What question are we solving? You know, we want to give somebody a car. Why? Is the car the best thing for them to solve their problem? Is it going to be possible? Is it efficient? So in doing the research, if you break it down into what question am I solving, the question is, as a consumer, as a customer, I want to get from point A to point B. Is that the only question what questions should we be asking that customer in order to make sure we're figuring out what problem to solve? Anybody? I'm a customer, I want to get from point A to point B. What other information do you need in order to do an analysis?
How fast do you need to get there?
How fast you need to get there, very good. I could write it on the board.
What's most important for you during that process or that journey?
Okay, elaborate a little bit more.
Because you're saying point A to point B, but what's really important in that process? So is it I just want to get there, or I want to get there fast, or I want to get there the cheapest way, or I want
Okay,
so it's a big cost.
cheap, yep.
Yeah.
How far? That's a really good one. Are you carrying any loads? Cargo?
Why do you need to get from point A to point B?
Yeah. Let's.
The results that you're looking for when
Yeah.
you get there.
Good. Results. Comfort.
In what other ways have you tried getting from point A to point B?
Yep. What are you doing now? That's a really good one too, because like, what are you doing now, and why don't you like doing that? Then that kind of takes you back to figuring out. I also think this is something that should be broken down more. Why do you want to get from point A to point B? As customers that are wanting to get from point A to point B, this is going to be a loaded question, which is going to end up probably, they're going to say some of these type of things too. So, anything else? So, based on that, in this analogy, the story that he tells on his article that he wrote about this was it's a person on a college campus. So they wanted to get from point A to point B. So it's like, all right, let's iterate with the lowest common thing. And even before this, it's like, have you tried the bus? And then let's build this next model and deliver it to customers and get feedback. What did you like about that? Well, it was fine, but it was wobbly and I fell off. Say what?
I think you can get to where you're going faster.
Yeah. It was like, it's not very efficient still. So, all right, they added a handlebar. Same kind of stuff. It's better, I'm more stable, but still I'm sweaty when I get there. I don't know. All right, then let's iterate again. And that's kind of the idea behind, you see where I'm going. One of the feedback things that he said they got was that they liked the air on them. That wasn't a problem. They didn't mind being exposed to the elements. And this, again, is just a metaphor and an analogy, so it's all made up, of course. But you get the idea that we need to, this is kind of the fail fast thing of let's really analyze what we're doing with our customer base. Let's really see what's possible. Let's build the instead of building the most valuable prototype, your MVP, let's build the, what did he call it? Well, he said instead of doing minimal viable, because those words are very easy to misunderstand, let's do God, I can't remember it.
Like a rookie version versus MVP?
Yeah, it's like the first testable product, and then move to the first likable product, and then move to the first lovable product. And so but the idea is to stay in feedback mode with your customer, have a set of beta customers, in your prototyping phase. Software is easy. People do this, and he had a really great example of like how they did it at Spotify. One guy spent 6 days, wrote the first version. Shared it with friends and family because it was hard-coded and it was on their own personal server. They didn't have licensed music. They just had a set of music that they had hard-coded in for them to search and choose from. And their first thing that they wanted to accomplish was no latency. As soon as you hit play, you start hearing it. That was kind of their target that they wanted to hit. And they kept the interface super simple. So they iterated the first time with just family and friends. And then they modified, and then they modified. And they have an amazing success story. I think he said or maybe he was talking about Minecraft. Anyway, like 100 times they did software updates during that first year. Minecraft is the same kind of story. So they iterated a lot, and they still do updates. They have a constant feedback loop that they do with their user base to add features and what does the customers actually want in this world of Minecraft. So kind of that same concept. Now, if you're doing a product-based business, it might be harder. Like, let's say we are trying to make a new version of a car and select our car. Well, obviously, we can't just like one guy and like hit a first prototype out. But modeling, and again, getting surveys, doing analysis is going to be really important to whatever it is that you're trying to do. And then not getting, we have to, allow the customers to lead and not get so hell-bent on it. No, this is what I envision, and I want it to look like this. We need to not be so emotionally tied to what it is we're trying to do, and remember the ultimate thing of just get them from point A to point B fast and cheap and whatever. Yes?
I feel like people get stuck in the features. Right?
Yes.
Like, these are all the things I would love for it to have.
Exactly.
But it's not answering those questions.
Yeah, or picking one question to focus on for that first time. Exactly. Yeah, feature creep is policy creep also happens, but that's a whole other thing. Cool. Any questions so far? Any other comments? Let's see. I actually don't think I have any more slides. So, so we can break it down a little bit more, but I think that the gist of it is simple. The actual execution of it is not. Coming up with the ideas, figuring out what problem we need to solve, why we're going into business. Like, we have some inspiration that we, or vision that we have, but now we got to break it down. And then there's all the costing layers that need to happen. Market research, what other competitors are out there in the space. Lots of great resources on that life cycle, just Google product development life cycle. There's a ton of textbooks and articles about it. So I wanted to just kind of touch on what I feel is really important, which is, iterate fast and fail fast and get feedback and stay in communication with your customers as you're going. So, yes?
Could you share a little bit, and it can be about either of your businesses, but kind of how you built up your businesses with some of this in mind? Because I'm sure it's like you wanted to start everything and do everything, but
right.
you
Well,
have money and time.
Yeah, exactly. Well, me personally, 3810 is my first to do. Our audio company My husband's actually right back over there. He's the product development guy. But even with 3810, it was one, I don't even know what to do about the incubator stuff. I just need to get tenants. I need to get it where I can rent it. So that was phase one of just making the building and figuring out how I was going to charge, what price I was going to charge. So talking to realtors, looking at what other people are doing, and just putting the sign out that says for lease. And then it was figuring out, starting going to incubator association meetings and other startup meetings and kind of figuring out what does that look like and what programs do I want to offer. And I've iterated that. I'm still iterating. We just launched new stuff, literally it's happening right now. Figuring out how I want to distinguish us in that space. Focusing on product-based businesses that need to have a place to scale on their manufacturing operations and processes. When Jess started DD Audio, I mean, he was a reseller, so he went and bought 100 speakers, and he went door to door, Southern California. Hey, I got these speakers. And he loved car audio anyway, so he knew. And then he ended up pivoting, because as he was talking to customers, he got feedback that, man, these speakers sound really good that you went and bought from this company, and it would be really cool if you could put them in a cabinet. And then, so he put them in a cabinet, and then he went to, what do you like? Do you like that? I put it in a cabinet. Yeah, I like that. Sounds really great. What if it could do this or that? I mean, so it was very much him going out and getting customer feedback and wanting to solve pain points. So, and then as we went along, it was like, well, we should manufacture the woofer because the one supplier stopped selling to us. And so we found the other part manufacturers so we could buy parts and assemble the woofers. And then we started manufacturing woofers. And so it just kept kind of evolving in that way. So very much iterative and responsive to not only the changing things that happen in audio with technology improvements, but also the changing economic things that would happen, especially when trying to deal with international supply chain stuff. And the last 3 years have been bad, but it's going good.
What are some of the ways that you've seen maybe some of the biggest hiccups that founders kind of getting in their own way during this process?
I think a couple. One for sure is they want to keep it too secret. It's like, I mean, I understand, but at the same time, you gotta tell people what it is, and you've got to talk to suppliers, sign NDAs or whatever. And if somebody else was going to come up with it and do it, then, I mean, it's hard. So the chances of somebody stealing your idea in the beginning phases of that is just like so minute. Yes, Sean.
Just to play off that, there was that guy who came in, he was trying to be so secretive about his product, and he had a patent and the whole thing, and if he'd just done 10 minutes of research, he would have saw that it's already out there.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So that's
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's a classic example of that, because he did all this work for a product but when he was ready to go to market, he didn't have there wasn't a market for it. It was a very crowded space. So, yes, sir, back and back.
Sometimes you maybe don't get enough sample size of your idea or product to see how it's going to fit. And after maybe some rejections and someone says, well, what about this or this? So then you start off on side lanes when you really just need to keep going for a while longer and see if what you already have fits. Don't switch too fast.
Yeah, that's a really good thing too. When you want to please every customer in your sample size, and figuring out which features are really the core things that you want to stay with, and then not iterating too fast that you don't have enough chance for the product to actually scale in the market. Because you're going to have early adopters, and they're always going to want the next iteration, and they're the ones that are always like, yeah, do this and do that. But then there's going to be the later adopters that are never going to be able to keep track because there's been so many changes. So yeah, very good point.
to go about kind of collecting this data? You know, is it, whether it be in person trying to show people, or, you know, in the modern day trying to Zoom with people and show, or?
I think it depends on the product for sure.
Yeah.
If in the case of the audio stuff, it's really about getting it in front of people. I mean, they have to put their hands on it and play with it. I think the software space is similar. I mean, you want actual users using it because they're going to notice things better. I mean, Lego is a perfect, like another example he used as like get the kids actually playing. And they launched this one next nights or something, and one of the feedback they got was, which one's the bad guy? Because they both didn't look, they both were too nice looking, I guess. So, I mean, those are examples of make sure you're getting them out there. So depending on your product, go to the people that you think, and that might even challenge you too, because maybe you think, oh, my target audience is, you know, 18 to 30-year-olds, and actually there's 40-year-olds that like it better. So kind of really making sure that, and a lot of times if you already have competitors in your space, then that's going to help you figure that out. But there was one other thing I thought of, but I can't think of it now.
I have a really good example of that.
Okay.
I make on-natural body care products, and in the retail stores, the sales are much lower than like at a pop-up where the whole purpose is to go buy things, and then I have samples where people can try it. So like if they have it in their hand, they feel it, they're more inclined to be like, I already like this, I know that I like it, versus that looks cool, I might like it.
Yeah. No, in the retail store, the shelf space and our visuals, I mean, we're looking for things we already recognize a lot of times. So yeah, that's a really good analogy of finding the right sell lanes, and that should probably be in that marketing too. What was the type of products again?
I make natural body care products.
Cool. What's the name?
Like you were saying earlier, like you have to start small. Like for instance, when I started it, like I worked for Amazon for 7 years, so this model is very familiar to me. But when I wanted to do something different, I used to be a hairstylist for 15 years before that, and I missed the hands-on. And I have sensitive skin, so I started making soap, but I didn't know how to make soap. So I did the melt and pour version where you go buy soap and then just reformulate it. And I was like, okay, this is cool. And then my sister tried it, my family tried it, and they were like, yeah, you should make more, blah, blah. And then I went to shows, like a pop-up for my very first one, and I made like, the lip scrub thing was a big craze, so I made lip scrubs and soap, just those two, my first pop-up. And the feedback that I got was, oh, did you hand make these? And I would say, yes. They were like, what is it made out of? I don't know. You know, it was like that, and I was like,
Ooh.
that's something I should figure
Right.
out.
Yeah.
So that's when I realized I need to learn how to make real soap, like my own soap, so I can say, these are the ingredients, this is what you might be not be allergic to.
Right.
And then I had more feedback saying, you make lotion? I had lotion questions all the time, so I went for body butter, and body butter is my biggest seller. And the question that I have now that I've never gone into because I don't want to is bath bombs and steamers, but they're like, it's like a big thing that people want. So like you were saying, you just gotta go, you gotta listen, like you make this because you like this, but this is what their money likes.
Right.
So make what their money likes.
Right. and then you ultimately get to decide how wide you want to get before you get certain depth too.
Yeah, so what you were talking about, whether you should make like a lot of different things and get to a whole audience, or make a select thing that's gonna grow big. I only make 5 different products, even though people are like shampoo bars, conditioner bars. All this stuff is big right now.
Yeah.
Like, it's just me.
Right.
It's just me. And I know some people that already have companies like the way that I do, and they're very overwhelmed with all of this sense, and now they have all of this demand, and they can't keep up. So my solution was do a seasonal thing, like you have like maybe 4 staples.
Right.
You have 2 seasonals for spring, 2 seasonals for summer. That way you're not overwhelmed, and you can keep track and build a standard for your customers to build that scarcity want.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
Yes.
Like that.
Yeah.
So
The McRib model.
Yeah, exactly. Made it come back.
Yeah.
Well, I like that you said that you went and did a pop-up, and I think that's the thing that a lot of entrepreneurs are afraid to do, to test, is really getting that feedback. It's been nice to see a number of entrepreneurs spend money to go to a convention or to some expo to be able to even just ask and say, this is what my business is, even if there isn't something. It's, could you fill out a survey? You know, would you buy this?
Right.
You know, and just having the time commotion around you, and people are saying like, yeah, this is maybe what I don't like about these products, so I love that you're doing this, or hey, I probably wouldn't pay this much for this product, but if you could, like you said with these items, right? Well, maybe I want to get there faster.
Right, right.
That's my only priority.
Yeah.
I don't care what I pay for. Then you get that information. So I think putting yourself out there has been a challenge for all of us. But the more that you do it, then you find out what's really worth your time, as opposed to trying to do everything.
Yep. Yes, sir.
I have a question. Can you speak to what they call the razor and blade model? So like Gillette, they give you the razor, but they sell you the blade. And can you speak to how that concept can apply to product development in this, day and age? We see a lot of similar.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, give them the razor cheap and hook them on the blades that they have to spend more money for. The printer and ink model.
God of that.
The what?
Apple is like the god of that.
Oh, yeah. So I personally, I think it's the residual income kind of thing, where if you're wanting to have a product that people buy long term, but then you want to be able to keep some kind of something happening, where that customer, it took you so long to acquire, but you need to now want to keep that customer engaged. And audio is the worst, because it's like, you could pass this down to your kid.
Yeah.
Some people do. But we always make sure we try to do upgrades and offer different kind of, even at one point we used to do exchanges. It's like if you want to trade in this model that you had for a different size because you got a different car, that we would let people do trade-ins and stuff like that. So just trying to kind of keep that. And when we rebuild stuff that's really old, so we still, even if we had a pair of our actual cabinet speakers that we made, probably 1995, that came back recently, and we found a woofer that would work and made it good again. So, but I think that's part of that customer service aspect. What is the service after the sale look like? And it could be in a situation like that where it's something that's consumable that they need to keep repurchasing, or it could be some other way of offering service and staying connected.
Call back to that model there. Even if you figured out based on feedback that 5 was what you wanted, if you didn't have the capacity to do those repairs, like you're talking about, you can't fix a car, but you can't fix a bike.
Yeah.
You might still go towards the bike products versus the car products.
Yeah.
Because you can service that after the sale versus 5. With 5, you might have to outsource and so on.
Yeah. No, there's so many things that happen in how you set up your distribution, and in a situation of a car, car manufacturers have car dealers, and then there's service shops, and so yeah, there's a lot of layers that, depending on what type of product, again, you're gonna have to deal with and address. But yes.
A question that I hear a lot of people ask is just how to price what they're creating. And I was just wondering if you had any, any thoughts on that? I think, because
Yeah, for sure.
Talked about it has to do with the customer discovery. But,
Yes.
I think that's where maybe also people get a little blocked, is I don't know what this is worth.
Yep.
And then they either undersell themselves or, kind of toss themselves
They
out.
price it just at what it costs to make,
Yeah.
plus, a little bit.
Yep.
But it's like you could sell this for 3 or 5 times more, but they're, maybe too embarrassed to do so.
Yeah. All right. So there's a bottom down or top down approach. Bottom up, top down. So, like in the case of body butter, there's other products out there. You have price ranges, and the price range might be, from a $1 sign to a $3 sign, kind of thing, for some fancy stuff. So you have to decide, where you want to fit in there. And what's the market willing to bear, there's Suave, right? Do they make lotion? I don't know. And then there's, again, like the big department store, Lush. So somewhere in the middle probably is a good place to be, until you get that notoriety. I don't know, practical. But so then you kind of know this is what the price of the market out there that I want to try to attain. Then you've just got to, I mean, it's a recipe. You got to start breaking it down to, you know, serving size. So and when you're starting, you're just, you know, you might go to the grocery store and get your materials, but you're going to want to source where you would get it, the 100-pound bags. Yeah. And then start figuring out, okay, to make it in my kitchen, it's going to cost me this much, and like literally price it out. And to make it, if I can make 100 at a time, I can times this recipe now, and I can see, okay, I'm going to need X number of this to make 100 units. So you have to do that recipe, and you have to figure out what that actual real costs. And then you got to be honest about your labor, and you can't price it on what you want to make per hour, but what you would pay workers to do it per hour. This also is really good to do so that even if you go to an outsourced manufacturer at some point, that you can hold them accountable. It's like, hey, I did some research, and I understand, you know, you're getting this 100-pound bag here, or these are some of the vendors, and I got prices from them. Vendors will give you prices. And you can tell them you're going to make 1,000. You don't have to actually do it. So do all that analysis for sure. And then you have to decide, so that's going to be your cost of goods. And then you have to think about your cost of sales. So anybody know the difference? My writing's horrible, sorry.
Those would be like the products that you have to buy to make the item, and cost of sales is what it costs for you to be able to present it and get it in front of people.
Yep. Yeah, it's going to be, are you paying commissions to anybody? Are you paying, we all have to pay the freaking credit card people. They get their 3%.
Marketing expenses, that fall under.
Marketing might not be cost of sales. To me, this is like shipping. If you're doing free shipping, Amazon, if you're selling on Amazon or eBay, they have even higher fees.
Or like the pop-up fees.
Yeah. How many of those shows you need to do? What does it cost to do that? Some of that can be put in the cost of sales. Some of it is just overhead. Some of it is marketing. And this is just, again, there's different schools of thought on this, but this is mine. So then now you have a true, you know, total cost. So then you can kind of play around with how much, and based on this, how much % do I have to meet this? Is it a 30%? Is it 50%? Is it 100%? So if this costs me $5 per unit and I can sell it for 20, figure out what that ratio is.
Even talk about the gross profit margin thing, cover your overhead.
Well, yeah. So first, in order to get there, you have to know how much you're marking it up. How much did you say?
75% profit margin.
Do you feel that's realistic? Have you done this yet?
For body care, yes.
Okay, cool.
Because we're at like 80 right now.
Awesome.
But you also, what I was going to add to that, $1 to $5 is, like you said, how do you price it? It depends what market you want to get into. Do you want to get into like Walmart, or do you want to get into like the mall? Like,
Right.
Do you want a luxury product, or do you want everybody can get this product? And so
Yeah.
that would
Or
affect your
yeah.
packaging.
Packaging is, major costs.
And then on your profit portion of like to meet that number, I just learned that you have to divide that by 50% to put it back in there, and 50% for your bills. Because if you can't pay your house bill, then you really can't continue your business.
Yeah, so that's kind of what I was getting at here. One of the other things, cost of sales wise, is, oh my God, I forgot already. Anyway, it'll come back to me. So let's say it's 75%. In the audio business, we're lucky to get 40, but based on the cost that we do. So now you know, okay, and I have a spreadsheet that I created. I'm happy to share the link to. So you could even say, okay, I'm going to make 100 units, and I'm going to sell them for $25 a unit, and I'm going to plug in these ratios to my cost of goods and cost of sales. Cost of sales could be anywhere from 7% to 15%, depending on if you have to, at some point you get reps or distributors and you have to sell wholesale. Now this margin changes, you put it here, you put it less there or more there. 6 and 1 happened to them. Anyway, so then you've got, okay, how many units do I have to sell in order for me to make, 48,000? Somebody told me that's what the IRS determines as a living wage, or the SBA determines as a living wage for an entrepreneur. I want to pay health insurance. So how much is that? How much is, my extra employee? I'm going to have to pay a web developer something. I'm going to have utilities and overhead. How many units do I have to sell in order to just break even? So that's it, and then that's like, is that attainable? Because maybe it's not 100, maybe it's 10,000. It's like, oh dang. So that's just, again, break even. We want to have profit so that we can make discretionary decisions like marketing, like improved product stuff, like being able to go to and reinvest in more inventory, things like that. That's when we're spending profit. And some of this I'm going to cover tomorrow in the money class too, but anyway, that's kind of how I work with people, is kind of that back door. It's like, what is your cost, what is your thing, and figure out those ratios, and then we can plug them into the spreadsheet formula and figure out how many units you need to sell in order to break even. And then you can start getting aspirational of like, oh man, how many units to make $100,000 a year, or how many units to have 5 employees, or.
So that would be for a physical product, but how do you price like a piece of software or a service?
Well,
The costs aren't necessarily.
yeah.
Like you don't have a bunch of physical like inventory costs on those sorts of things.
Yeah. Well, it's very much like Charn is the owner of a brewery. It's very much like a brewery. It's not the startup costs in order to launch the piece of software are huge, because you have to now spend however many hours and pay however many developers to develop it, and that's when this becomes really important because you have so much startup costs. So that's a different model, because now you have to figure out what is your startup cost going to be and how are you going to pay for that. And friends and family, are you going to be able to get a loan? And you have to have all this numbers down for the banks or you have to have all this stuff in place too. This is the same, in my opinion, for software. Depending on if you're doing the coding yourself, which is what happened with Minecraft, with Spotify. The founders were the programmers. Now it's just their time. So they can iterate to their family and friends, and they can get feedback and then start like graduating to another layer. So then their startup costs are not as much. But they usually want to plan to amortize the startup costs, and the IRS allows us to do that over however many years. I don't know I'm not a tax return accountant, but if it's a 20-year or 30-year AM that the IRS allows, then that's how we can tell profitability, but you still have to cover those startup costs in some other way, through loan or whatever. So doing how you're doing is smart. I'm going to start in my kitchen. I'm going to figure out some basic things. I'm going to share with my family and friends. I'm going to do a little bit bigger batch and go to this pop-up shop, and then I'm going to figure out the product quality, and now you keep your startup costs manageable. But now you're going to have proof of concept, and then you're going to want to create a startup plan for the scale to be able to find the bigger manufacturing space, or figure out if you're going to sub that out to somebody, and you can do modeling now based on that. So sometimes scaling doesn't happen in the beginning. Sometimes it happens, well, usually it should happen like this. So even us, we have to iterate and figure out how we're going to scale or how we're going to do something new. But does that answer? I went way into the weeds a little bit, but.
I think it's helpful because a lot of times it seems like the you charge and how many sales you have to make to then make sure you can pay everybody beyond a startup.
Yeah,
price.
no, I definitely, yeah.
That if people don't take the time thinking, oh, people will just buy it, then you put yourself in such a horrible situation of, like you said, like building the car, but building the website that everyone says, well, this is great, but I'll never use it, or I'll use it, but I would never pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
And, but I think it's a challenge for a lot of people to figure out the pricing, and so I was telling someone earlier today, I'm like, have you talked to competitors, or have you, somebody yesterday mentioned you should do a sales call somebody who has a potential software like yours.
Yep.
And say you're interested in buying it, and just get an idea of like,
Yep.
what is that sales pitch? What are you really getting out of it? How much is it going to cost? Because I think a lot of times software, they don't have all the prices online. You have to call and talk
Oh,
to
yeah.
the person, but that's how they do their lead generation.
Exactly. Yep.
You
That's
have
definitely a
to
very
know
good
your
point.
customer.
Yep. Because, yeah, and that's why understanding the target market, you're going the demographics, what is already out there, and then the feedback, keeping the feedback loop with those customers so that you don't go off the rails and waste money. Yeah. But
Because then you can develop this product and realize that you'll never be able to afford it.
yep, definitely happen, especially when you have like the smart devices and stuff too, because now you have a hardware component to these, you know, IoT things, and there's software development that has to go on, but the hardware needs to be good, and you hear horror stories about that. Yes.
I'm not a super tech-savvy person, but like with software, like if it's like a program, like maybe like a computer program, I just found out, because I'm not tech, I just got my own laptop, but the Windows program, they used to sell it where it was like $100 for the $150 for the program and you put on your computer, but now it's a yearly charge for you to have to rebuy it every time like a license.
Windows 11 went to a subscription model.
It's like for like a software, would that be a
Really
good
cool.
idea?
I love that.
I love that. Smart. No, she's smart.
Yeah, we got a beer subscription model you're working on, Tarn. That could backfire.
The subscription is you have to buy another beer.
Trial size, like I have a friend that lives in Wisconsin, and they make like it's like soda beer. It's like beer that tastes kind of like soda, and they do little mini metal cans, and then every month if you pay a subscription, they'll send you like different flavor cans, like 6 different flavor cans.
Cool.
Like that. So it's possible. People want to order drunkenness. It's great.
Yeah, being in a space that's so heavily regulated, like some places that are like Oklahoma, you can't send alcohol at all. So
Wisconsin's just an alcoholic state. Like we're just there.
Well, there's a lot of them, but yeah. Nope, that's true. I've seen the wine subscription stuff and things like that, yeah.
Which is so
Cool.
interesting how, like as a country, well, maybe not, but internationally, like the subscription models is such a huge thing to grab people.
Yeah.
But I just feel like there's so many places that I feel like it won't ever work, but who knows?
Just wanted to, he's actually,
I know each other.
yeah. If you have any software development questions, though, about that stuff, Vance is an expert there. So, cool. Any other questions, comments?
How big do you think you should, like how long should you wait till you go to a space where you might need to just start having like a separate space to manufacture?
As soon as you can do this and you can pay rent. So, researching the spaces that are around and what they cost and what kind of things you would need in that space is you know, because if you don't know how much it's going to cost you, you can't ever put it in the target and figure out how many units. So, yeah.
Well, and if you get a bigger space and you move to a larger space, are you going to be able to utilize that additional space right away? Are you at a place where, like, if you're making, cosmetic products, what kind of equipment are you going to have to buy to be able to, have as many units that you need that amount of storage space or cooling or, rack space, for your manufacturing machines, you're gonna have to get additional, probably like forms or molds, I'm assuming you're using. You're gonna have to, buy packaging equipment to, and have, because you're not gonna do every single little thing by hand, so you might need a machine that does, some of the wrapping or something like that. Those are all things that you're gonna wanna be able to, if you're getting a bigger space to do those things, how quickly are you gonna be able to spin those things up and utilize that space that justifies your higher, monthly, overhead.
That's good information.
Yep.
You have an event today at 6 o'clock.
Yes.
Could you tell me about that? I don't know
Sure.
about it, but I know that there's an event here.
Yeah, we're, it's just a showcase, so a lot of our tenants and then some community members will have, kind of like a pop-up. Some of them will be selling stuff, some of them are service-based, and they're just telling about what they do and just hanging out.
So they'll explain like how their space works, what they use it for, like.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And there'll be like tours we'll be doing and stuff too. The prizes, so drawings, golden eggs. Everybody gets a golden egg that came today. All right, let's wrap this up on the live thing. And then we can still talk.